See if it's on here.
I can't check. I don't have a Wi-Fi password.
Oh.
You don't have Wi-Fi? No.
It should be going.
Testing, 1, 2. Guys, we will need to use the mics so that folks online can actually hear us. So if you have something to say, you get to use the mic.
We do. We just took them to the market Sunday. They're gone. They're at the processing center. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Let the minutes show that the meeting is called to order at 7:03 p.m. by me, Mrs. Adams. The four members that are present are Mr. Stroud, Mr. Hanger, Mr. Engel, and Mrs. Adams. Dr. Richards and Dr. Hatton as well. The adoption of the agenda, it is recommended that the agenda for the February 18th, 2021 regular meeting agenda be approved as presented with additions, corrections, or deletions as recommended by the board, and we do have some late items.
Yes, Madam President, under presentations, we're going to take off Ms. Jones. She'll be with us next month. And then under late items, we'll be hiring 2 individuals as girls' tennis volunteers. They're under late items, Sarah Yost and Kelsey Bruce.
I need a motion to approve the adoption of the agenda with the additions of the late items and the deletion of one item.
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made by Mr. Engel. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Stroud. Okay. The voting, Mr. Stroud, how do you vote? Mr. Hanger?
Aye.
Mr. Engel?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. It is recommended that the minutes from the January 14th, 2021 executive session and January 14th, 2021 regular meeting and January 14th, 2021 finance meeting be approved as presented. There is no discussion on this. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made by Mr. Hanger. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Engel. Voting, Mr. Stroud,
Aye.
Mr. Hanger, Mr. Engel.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Business office recommendations. Approval of claims. It's recommended that claim numbers 23 through 136 be approved as presented.
Are there any discussions on the approval of the claims? Okay, may I have a motion to approve these claims?
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made by Mr. Stroud. Do I have a second?
I'll take it.
Seconded by Mr. Hanger. Voting, Mr. Stroud, Mr. Hanger, Mr. Engel. Motion passes 4-0.
Approval of payroll. It's recommended that regular payrolls for February 19, 2021 and March 5, 2021 be approved for payment.
If there is no discussion on this, may I have a motion for approval of payrolls?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mr. Hanger. I don't hear so well. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Engel. Voting, Mr. Stroud,
Aye.
Mr. Hanger,
Aye.
Mr. Engel. Motion passes 4-0.
We don't have any presentations at this time, Madam President. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I saw my circled item there. Bank reconciliation. It's recommended the bank reconciliation from January 31, 2021 be approved as presented.
Do I have a motion to approve the bank reconciliation?
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made by Mr. Hanger. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Stroud. The voting, Mr. Stroud,
Aye.
Mr. Hanger,
Aye.
Mr. Engel.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
And again, we don't have any presentations. Sorry.
Glasses are fogging up. Okay. Participation in school board meeting. If there are any public comments on agenda items, please stand and state your name. You might want to pick up
I'll
a
get a mic to
microphone.
you if you have something to speak on. No, okay. Under personnel, resignations and retirements, Sandy Smith, resignation, teacher assistant, North Harrison Elementary. I'm sorry.
I thought you ready.
You did not, here you go. Sorry. You don't have a podium up here. State your name.
My name's Mason Llewellyn. I had a question for Mr. Reed's class. I was wondering, the full-time employees, not the teachers, but assistants, the other employees at the school, are they being paid during the virtual?
That's not an agenda item, but that's up to Mr. Riddle.
I'll comment.
But he'll comment.
Yeah, you're probably speaking more about the teacher assistants.
Right.
We're working with the teacher assistants to make sure they stay financially whole. Some of them now are working with e-learning and doing small group instruction and reaching out and doing those kinds of things. So as we're doing e-learning, we want to make sure that it is as complete an experience as we can make it for all students. Those assistants that may not be able to help in those ways, we are allowing them to also then tack on dates at the end of the calendar year, so that we just want to make sure that everybody stays financially whole. We don't want this to take somebody, I don't want them to fall in a hole financially just as a result of doing e-learning. So we're doing our best to keep those folks financially whole going forward. Does that answer your question? Okay. All right, resignations and retirements. Sandy Smith, resignation, teacher assistant, North Harrison Elementary School, effective 1/29/2021.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept this resignation?
I'll make the motion.
Motion is made by Mr. Engel. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Stroud. Or was it Mr. Hager? Oh, sorry. Like I said, I don't hear. Voting, Mr. Stroud.
Aye.
Mr. Hager.
Aye.
Mr. Engel.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
I'll do my informational items in my board member in my superintendent comments.
No appointments.
Okay, well, no, let me go ahead and talk about this, because that way everybody has the same information under informational.
Okay.
It's no secret that we took a big hit about a week ago with the loss of Veronica Batista. And under state guidance, I want to discuss kind of the format for replacement of a board member who passes. Under state statute, the board has 30 days to make that change. They get to appoint a person to fill the last 2 years of her term, or the balance of her term, which is about 2 years left. And the seat has to meet the parameters as if the seat were an open election. For example, if it was Morgan Township, it would have to be someone from Morgan Township and that sort of thing. Well, Mrs. Batista's seat was actually, the at-large position. So anyone within the district can put in and make application to participate and serve out the end of her term. The board has chosen to have anyone that would like to participate in that or would like to serve in that role to send a letter of interest outlining your interest, your reasons, thinking, your community involvement, that kind of thing. You can send that to the board, or you can send that to me, and I will acknowledge receipt of your letter of interest, and I will then make sure the board has that information. I will be also sending that information out via a school messenger email so that everyone has that information and has everyone's complete email addresses. We've had a couple of folks express an interest already. We would ask that you have that information back to us by Friday of next week, a week from tomorrow. I know that's a pretty tight turnaround, but we only have 30 days and we're already 7 days down. The board then intends to meet in a special session prior to our March meeting to name a replacement based on those applications and those letters of interest so that that person can be seated and in place for our March meeting. We'll also have to coordinate that with Sherry Brown in order so that individual can be sworn in. They'll have to be sworn in as an active member prior to participating in their first board meeting. So just you can make that in the format of an email, or if you want to send that as an attachment, as a Word or PDF document, you can send that to me. But I will send out that information to everyone in School Messenger tomorrow so that everyone has the same information, receives the same information. I'll also be getting with the Board Democrat and have that be included as part of our board board meeting article. Kate Clay's not here this evening, but she is participating virtually. And if you have any questions about that process, just stop up and see us after the meeting. And I'll have more on Ms. Batista during my comment. Late items. Sarah Yost, North Harrison High School, volunteer girls tennis, effective February 11, 2021. And Kelsey Bruce, North Harrison High School, volunteer girls tennis, effective February 11, 2021.
May I have a motion to accept these late items?
I'll make that motion.
It's made by Mr. Stroud. May I have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Engel. Voting, Mr. Stroud, Mr. Hanger.
I just want to ask one question. Is
Go
this a
ahead.
paid position?
These are volunteer.
So no pay involved?
No pay is involved.
Okay. Yeah, I'll say aye, yes.
Mr. Engel.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. We now have board member communication.
I'm going to bring this mic down to Eric. So Mr. Stroud can work its way back.
Just a few things real quick. Like Lance said before, we took a major hit a couple weeks ago. Unfortunately for me, I was only able to work with Veronica for a short amount of time, but she will be extremely missed, and she was definitely a pillar of the community here in North Harrison.
Well, not only was it difficult to sit here tonight without Veronica being here, either live or online, but it's not something that we did not expect down the road, but it has been a shock to all of our systems. And I was, along with Mrs. Adams, being elected to the board same time as Veronica was, and I didn't know Veronica before I ran for the board, but she's become a wonderful friend to me and a great colleague, and I have her in the highest respect. She's such a business mind she has, and such a strong will. And we had some very, very difficult days, as Mrs. Adams can tell you, early on when we were elected on the school board. It was a very difficult time, and Veronica always handled those things very, very well. And my heart goes out to her family, to her daughters, to her son, And of course, the Sig family is a big family, and I know many of them, and I know this is devastating to them. And hopefully, some of the things that she's done will continue to affect our school corporation for years to come, because I know that she has laid the foundation for great things here at North Harrison.
Not much I can add to that, but Veronica was a tremendous friend of mine. I've been on the school board for 4 years, and she was a great resource. She knew everyone. Everyone knew her. She will be greatly missed. I mean, I miss her. It's still kind of hard to think about, but we're going to continue on doing what we've been doing. Some of the things that have happened in the past 4 years, I think it made this board stronger. I did want to, if I may, I do have a funny story about.
Depends on which story.
4 years ago, we had a bad storm come through up the softball field, blew the roofs off 3 dugouts. We didn't realize as a league we didn't have insurance on the dugouts. We thought, and we didn't meet the criteria for the deductible for the school. I went to Dr. Richards, and he says, I don't think Mr. Thomas is going to say yes. And I showed up it was just my second school board meeting. I show up at the school board meeting for executive session early, and Mr. Thomas says, don't ask. Just don't ask. We're not, he goes, I heard, but I don't want to talk about it. Well, Veronica was the next person in, and she sits down and she looks at Mr. Thomas. She says, Mr. Thomas, aren't we going to help those little girls? They lost roofs on their dugouts. And he goes, well, Veronica, she goes, how much do you need, Carrie? And it wasn't much. I mean, because we had everything. It was just laying out in the field, or fields. And Mr. Thomas said, okay, I'll do it. And that was my first real experience with that, because she painted such a, and I'll never forget that. It was such a nice thing to do. It was the right thing to do. And I haven't forgotten about it, and I won't forget about it, and that's going to be my story to tell from this point forward.
Well, I'm going to follow up your story with a story. Years ago, when Veronica was in high school, my husband and I moved back from Rising Sun, Indiana. He's from here. And I was subbing at the high school and I can't sing, but I was subbing in the choir. The first time I saw her as a student there, and her personality came all the way through, and I can still see her standing in line in that show choir, and those girls were outside the portable singing. And like I said, I can still see her doing that, and that's been a lot of years ago. She was a wonderful person. I knew her for a long time too from church. She's a great school board member. She always asked good questions, and she probed a little deeper than the rest of us did. And she always kept the students and staff on her mind, and she always worked for the good of the school and the community, like you said, with the softball. And I'm going to miss her, but everybody is going to greatly miss Veronica.
You know, really the only thing I can say is she was just a tremendous human being. You know, I was blessed to be able to work with Veronica for a while since I've been here at North Harrison. And, you know, during our last board meeting when Veronica was participating, her last meeting, participating virtually, you know, I actually teared up a little bit because I was just thinking, you know, she knew when she resigned from her presidency of the school board where she was. You know, it had been real easy for Veronica 6 months ago to say, I'm done with this, but she didn't. And that just shows how much she cared about this school system and this community. And, you know, she's going to be very, very difficult to replace. God bless her family. We will miss her greatly.
I've been in the school system now, I think this is my 21st or 22nd year. You lose count after a while. She stepped onto the board at a time of quite a bit of tumult in our district with contracts and issues. And she ran for the right reasons. She ran to help make our community better. She ran to find a way to bridge the gap between teachers and administrators at that time in order to bring some calm and some path forward for our community. And she, along with Mrs. Adams and Mr. Hanger, kind of charted a new course for our district at that time. And that to me as an elementary administrator at that time was a big deal for me. It was a big deal for me to watch and something for me to admire. She was always community minded. Words really can't describe my feeling of loss. Veronica was a mentor to me. She was a colleague. She was a friend. She was a strong personality and an assertive woman. And I have a great deal of admiration for her in that regard. She always kept an eye on what was best for our community, what was best for our kids, and what in the long term would be the best outcome for our district. She was concerned with what was right and what, not necessarily with what was popular. And for that, I will always remember her. She always had the fortitude to ask, what is the right thing to do in this moment? And there have been several things that we've had to deal with through her 10 plus years on the board that were uncomfortable. But Mrs. Batista, Veronica, was willing to step up, be accountable as president, and make those hard decisions, and be a voice for kids and a voice in our community for what was right. And I just can't describe to you the loss that I feel. We all knew she was sick. I mean, we all knew that. But, the fact that, as Dr. Hatt pointed out, she wanted to stay involved with this board. She wanted to stay involved with the water board. And she wanted to be able to serve until the very end. I spoke with her the Monday before we were supposed to have last week's board meeting about agenda items, and so we had a long conversation. I could tell she was tired, but she even called me back later to ask more questions at that time. So the news that we received that Wednesday night into Thursday morning was, unexpected. But I feel a great sense of honor for having had known her and having worked with her for all these years. One final thing I'd like to, on a positive note, archery has done a great job. They've had a terrific season. Representatives from all four buildings are advancing through state. I believe the seniors are having what they're calling their final five or something tomorrow at 5 and Saturday at 5 for a send-off. And so we're very proud of the archery and the work that Mrs. First has done with those students.
It is recommended that the meeting be adjourned at 7:24 p.m. May I have a motion of adjournment?
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made by Mr. Hanger. May I have a second? Seconded by Mr. Stroud. Mr. Stroud, how do you vote? Mr. Hanger?
Aye.